Good evening. This is Vijayapriya Nithyananda.
And I'm Purnapriya Nithya. Welcome to a special investigative report that will challenge everything you thought you knew about one of the most misunderstood aspects of Hindu civilization.
Today we are going to talk about a system that has been weaponized against Hindus for over 150 years. A system that was elegant, flexible, and empowering until colonial powers twisted it into a tool of oppression.
We are talking about the Varna system, not the caste system. Because as we'll show you tonight, these are not the same thing. One is authentic Hindu wisdom, the other, a British colonial invention designed to divide and conquer.
For decades, Hindus have been told they should be ashamed of their social structure. They've been told that their scriptures mandated discrimination, that their ancestors created rigid hierarchies based on birth.
But what if I told you that almost everything you've been told about the so-called caste system is a lie? A carefully constructed narrative designed by British colonizers in the 19th century.
Tonight, we'll reveal the truth. We'll explore what the authentic Varna system really was, a sophisticated framework for distributing wealth, political power, knowledge, and labor in society.
And we will introduce you to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, who is reviving the original Varna Ashrama Dharma system in KAILASA, restoring what colonizers destroyed.
This is the story of cultural genocide, of how an entire civilization's social philosophy was deliberately distorted.
But it's also a story of revival, of how truth, no matter how deeply buried, eventually resurfaces.
So let's begin.
To understand the colonial distortion, we must first understand what Varna actually meant in authentic Hinduism.
The word Varna comes from the Sanskrit meaning color or quality, but this had nothing to do with skin color as colonial administrators would later claim.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has revealed that the Varna system was based on two principles, your karma and your guna.
So let me break this down. Karma here doesn't mean fate or destiny. It refers to actions motivated by an individual's worldview and natural inclinations.
And guna refers to one's qualities and the level of activism, essentially the number of active working hours per day and the nature of their engagement with society.
The system recognized four primary varnas, and here's what's crucial. These were not birth-based categories. They were functional roles that individuals could choose based on their aptitude and calling.
The first was Brahmana. These were the knowledge keepers, the teachers, the priests, the scholars. Their primary responsibility was to preserve and transmit wisdom.
Think about this. In a society without printing presses back then, without digital storage, without libraries as we know them today, someone had to memorize and pass down thousands of years of accumulated knowledge.
Brahmanas organized entire systems for transmitting wisdom through oral tradition, teachers imparting teachings from memory, fostering rigorous intellectual discipline.
And the second varna was Kshatriya, the administrators, the protectors, the rulers. These were people with the aptitude for governance, strategy, and defense.
According to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, in the discourses of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, the Hindu Kshatriya Varna was all about contributing to and enriching society, making human life more valuable and meaningful through just.
Now, here's what revolutionary about this system and what the British deliberately obscured. These categories were fluid.
Let me repeat that. Fluid, not fixed at birth, not hereditary, not unchangeable.
The Bhagavad Gita, one of Hinduism's most sacred texts, states clearly, Chaturvanyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha, meaning the four varnas were created by me based on guna and karma as declared by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavatam.
And character and action, not by birth, not bloodline, not family surname.
Historical evidence supports this. Professional historians who have studied pre-colonial court documents and traveler accounts have found that social identities were constantly malleable.
One could change one's social identity as easily as moving from one village to another.
And in fact, anthropologist Suzanne Bailey writes, and I quote, "Until well into the colonial period, much of the subcontinent was still populated by people for whom the formal distinctions of castes were of only limited importance." Unquote.
So what was the purpose of this Varna system? Why did it exist?
It was a framework for balanced societal development, so they call it. And as it is revealed in the Hindu scriptures, a way to ensure that all four essential functions, knowledge, protection, production, and service, were valued and maintained.
It distributed not just labor, but also wealth, political power, and knowledge. No single Varna was meant to monopolize all forms of power.
And this is crucial because the Varna system was designed by enlightened beings, by avatars and rishis, to help the beings, the souls, experience the completion of their desires in the shortest possible time, to manifest their ultimate based on their gunas.
Yes. As revealed by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam, it was a structure to help individuals find their true seeking, which is cosmic union with Paramashiva.
But then came the British and everything changed.
The year is in 1840. The British East India Company has been ruling large parts of India for decades, but they have a problem.
How do you govern hundreds of millions of people across the vast and diverse continents? How do you control a population you don't understand?
The answer, as it turned out, was simple. You categorize them. You simplify them. You create neat boxes and force everyone into them.
And most importantly, you turn them against each other.
Between 1840 and 1925, British colonial authorities conducted a series of census operations. These were not innocent data collection exercises.
They were tools of social engineering on a scale that probably has no parallel in the world history.
W.R. Cornish, who supervised census operations in the Madras Presidency in 1871, wrote, and these are his exact words, quote, "Regarding the origin of caste, we can place no reliance upon the statements made in the Hindu sacred writings," end quote.
So, in short, the translation is, we don't care what Hindu texts actually say, we are going to invent our own version.
The British then tried to fit all of the Hindu civilization's bewildering diversity into their neat fourfold hierarchy.
And in 1871, remember this date, the colonial government officially introduced the word caste to force fit people, groups into a pseudo-identity framework.
They used physical appearances, facial features, surnames, anything they could observe to categorize people. This had nothing to do with Hindu scriptures or tradition.
Approximately 25,000 people groups, including 3,000 jatis and 25,000 upjatis, were crammed into this artificial system.
And then came the darkest chapter, the Criminal Tribes Act of 1871.
This law, and I want you to pay close attention to this, declared entire communities to be hereditary criminals. You heard it right.
Born criminals, not because of anything they had done, but because of the group they were born into.
The colonial government used their 1871 census data to target specific communities, and who did they target?
Hindu scholars, priests, monastic orders, sannyasis, the very people who preserved Hindu knowledge and spiritual traditions.
By 1931, the colonial government had listed 237 criminal castes and tribes under this act. Millions of Hindus were branded as criminals by birth.
Think about that psychological impact of this. Imagine being told that you are a criminal simply because of who your parents are.
But the damaged education system.
The Charter Act of 1813 replaced the Hindu Gurukul system with British education.
Hindu students were taught that their native sciences were unscientific, that their theology was absurd, that their social systems were primitive and oppressive.
Generation after generation of Hindus were educated to be ashamed of their own civilization.
And here's the most insidious part. The British version of caste was then written into law, census records, administrative procedures, everything.
When India gained independence in 1947, it inherited this colonial framework. The made-up categories had become real because they were now associated with real rights or lack thereof.
Affirmative action policies, while well-intentioned, further cemented these artificial categories, religion-based electorates and caste-based reservations made these imagined concrete.
The British wrote the first and defining draft of Hindu history, and that draft is still the version most people believe today.
And now, one spiritual leader is working to undo centuries of colonial damage.
Before we discuss the revival happening in KAILASA, we need to address another source of confusion, the difference between Varna and Jati.
These are two completely different concepts that the British deliberately conflated.
Varna, as we've discussed, refers to the four functional categories based on karma and guna. It's about aptitude, calling, and social function.
Jati, on the other hand, refers to community groups, what we might call clans, tribes, or occupational guilds.
There were thousands of jatis in pre-colonial India. They were regional, occupational, linguistic. They were how people identified themselves locally.
A jati might be a community of weavers in a particular region, or a group of merchants who traded specific goods, or a clan of farmers who used particular techniques.
Jatis were about community identity, marriage networks, mutual support systems. They were flexible and they changed over time.
What the British did was take these thousands of diverse jatis and try to map them into the four varnas. This was like trying to fit a three-dimensional object into a two-dimensional framework.
It didn't work. It couldn't work. But they did it anyway because they needed a simple system they could control.
The result was a rigid, hierarchical caste system that resembled neither the jati system nor the varna system.
It was a colonial invention, a hybrid monster that served British interests. Divide Hindus into clearly defined, competing groups and rule over them.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, has been explicit about this. He has stated that the Varnashrama Dharma is the most abused concept in Hinduism.
All anti-Hindu forces, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism explains, have used these concepts to attack Hinduism deliberately, confusing Varna with Jati and both with the colonial caste system.
And this confusion serves a purpose. It allows critics to point at the worst aspects of the colonial caste system, which are very real and very terrible.
It's discrimination, when in fact authentic Hindu texts say the opposite.
The Bhagavad Gita, remember, clearly states that Varna is based on guna and karma, qualities and actions, not on birth.
But the damage has been done. Today, when most people, including Hindus themselves, hear Varna system, they think of the rigid, birth-based discriminatory caste system.
They don't think of a flexible, merit-based framework for organizing the society's essential functions.
This is why education is crucial. This is why we're doing this broadcast tonight.
Because the truth matters and because the truth is finally being revived.
Now let's talk about what is happening in KAILASA.
KAILASA, for those who may not know, is the revival of the united, ancient, enlightened, indigenous Hindu civilizational nations by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam.
And at the heart of this revival is the restoration of the true Varnashrama Dharma.
On April 24, 2020, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism made a significant declaration. He stated, and I quote, "I will set up a model Varnashrama Dharma in KAILASA and show to the world that this is the best Varnashrama system.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism called it a beautiful system and has been working to demonstrate how it actually functioned before colonial distortion.
So, what does this revival look like in practice? First, it's based on the principle that Varna is determined by aptitude, not birth. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has been explicit. At no point in authentic Hinduism was anyone bound to the Varna they were born into.
This means individuals in KAILASA can identify with the Varna that matches their natural inclinations and abilities.
Are you drawn to knowledge, to teaching, spiritual practice? You have Brahmana qualities.
Are you drawn to administration, leadership, protection of society? You have Kshatriya qualities.
And are you drawn to commerce, trade, production, entrepreneurship? You have Vaishya qualities.
Are you drawn to skilled service, craftsmanship, hands-on work? You have Shudra qualities.
And here's what's revolutionary. All four are considered essential and valuable. No hierarchy of worth, only a distribution of function.
The system ensures that wealth, political power, knowledge, and labor are distributed across all four Varnas.
No single group monopolizes everything. No single Varna can dominate all aspects of the society.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has also revived ancient Hindu institutions that were destroyed or marginalized during colonial rule.
For example, if we look at the Yogini Sarvanapita, an institution specifically established to empower and support girls and women to become enlightened, spiritual, powerful global leaders.
This challenges the colonial era of orthodoxies that restricted women's roles. In KAILASA's governance structure, women make up 80% of senior leadership and 90% of the parliament.
And think about that, 90% of the parliament, this is what authentic Hindu tradition actually supported before colonizers imposed Victorian era gender restrictions.
KAILASA has also revived traditional Hindu jurisprudence, including the Manuvadi Dharmashastra, Bhagavad Gita, and the Vedagamic scriptures.
And this is crucial because these are being interpreted in their authentic context, not through the colonial lens that has dominated for 150 years.
The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has established what we call as responsible democracy and enlightened blissful living based on cosmic principles.
The goal is not just a political or social organization, but the spiritual elevation, evolution of all the beings on planet Earth.
Remember, the original purpose of the Varna system was to help individuals complete their spiritual journey, to achieve what the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism explains as cosmic union with Paramashivam.
This is what was lost when the system was reduced to mere social hierarchy by colonial administrators.
KAILASA is also working to preserve Hindu knowledge that was systematically destroyed or denigrated during colonial rule.
So why does all of this matter? Why should anyone care about correcting the historical record about a social system from centuries ago?
Because the lies about the Varna system are still being used to attack Hindus today.
All over the world, Hindus face discrimination, violence, and prejudice based on the colonial distortion of their traditions.
They're told their religion is inherently discriminatory. They're told their scriptures mandate oppression. They're told they should be ashamed of their heritage.
And many Hindus educated in systems that perpetuate colonial narratives believe these lies about their own tradition.
This is cultural genocide, not the physical destruction of people, but the systematic destruction of a civilization's self-understanding.
When you convince a people that their own traditions are shameful, you don't need to conquer them with armies. They conquer themselves.
But here's the good news. Truth has a way of surviving. Knowledge, when preserved with dedication, cannot be permanently suppressed.
The work being done, being revived by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, is bringing this truth back to light.
Academic scholarship over the past few decades has thoroughly debunked the colonial narrative.
The evidence is overwhelming. The pre-colonial Hindu society was far more fluid, diverse, and flexible than the rigid caste system that the British created.
Now it's time for this scholarly knowledge to reach the general public. It's time for Hindus to reclaim their authentic history.
And this doesn't mean denying that discriminations exist today. Caste-based discrimination is very real and must be fought.
But we must understand its true origins. We must recognize that the worst aspects of the caste system are colonial amplifications, not Hindu creations.
And we must look to authentic Hindu principles, the real Varna system based on guna and karma, for solutions.
Because those principles, when properly understood, are actually tools for equality and social mobility, not oppression.
The Bhagavad Gita's revelation of the Varna based on character and action, not birth, is revolutionary even by modern standards.
Imagine a society where your role is determined by your abilities and choices, not by who your parents were. That's not regressive, that's progressive.
And this is what KAILASA is demonstrating. This is what the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is reviving, and this is what needs to spread.
Not as a return to some imagined past, but as a recovery of wisdom that can inform a better future.
Every Hindu who learns the truth about the Varna system becomes an ambassador for their civilization.
For every non-Hindu who understands the colonial distortion becomes an ally against bigotry.
And every individual deserves to know the truth about their heritage.
Tonight, we've taken you on a journey through one of history's greatest acts of cultural distortion, which is still misunderstood by the mass population until today.
We've seen how the British colonial authorities systematically twisted the Hindu Varna system into a rigid, discriminatory caste hierarchy.
We've learned how this distortion was weaponized through census operations, the Criminal Tribes Act, and the education system.
And we've discovered how the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagavan Nithyananda Paramashivam, is working to revive the authentic Varnashrama Dharma system in KAILASA.
The truth is simple. The Varna system was based on aptitude, not birth, on karma and guna, not bloodline.
It was a framework for organizing society's essential functions, ensuring that knowledge, power, wealth, and labor were distributed, not concentrated.
The colonial caste system was an invention designed to divide and rule, and it worked brilliantly. So brilliantly that even today, most people believe the colonial lie instead of the Hindu truth.
The question now is this: are we going to listen? Are we going to update our understanding based on evidence? Or will we continue to perpetuate colonial narratives?
For the sake of justice, for the sake of accuracy, for the sake of the millions of Hindus who deserve to know their authentic heritage,
we must choose the truth.
Thank you for watching today's special report, and we encourage each one of you to subscribe, like, and share this video if you would like to learn more about authentic Hinduism as revealed by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. We thank you and good night.
Good night.